usual energy, cameras whirring, audience chatter humming, producers darting across the floor with last-minute notes. Blake Shelton, dressed in his signature denim jacket and a relaxed grin, sat comfortably in his chair, ready to talk about his new album and tour. But behind the scenes, producers already sensed tension brewing. Joy Behar, known for her sharp wit and unapologetic opinions, had made it clear in prep that she wanted to ask some real questions about Blake's views and public statements. What was supposed to be a friendly celebrity chat was about to turn into something entirely different. As the intro music faded and the applause died down, Whoopi Goldberg kicked things off warmly. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome country music star, and one of the funniest guys on TV, Mr. Blake Shelton." The crowd erupted in cheers. Blake waved, flashing his easy smile. "Well, that's quite a welcome. Y'all sure know how to make a country boy feel nervous." The audience laughed. It was smooth sailing, for about 30 seconds. Joy leaned forward, tapping her notecards against the table. "So, Blake," she began, her tone casual but carrying that familiar edge, "you've built your whole image around being the everyman, small-town roots, old-fashioned values, a little whiskey, a little faith. But don't you think that's, I don't know, a little outdated in today's world?" Blake blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Outdated," he repeated, chuckling. "I guess I didn't know good manners and hard work went out of style." A ripple of laughter moved through the audience, but Joy wasn't smiling. She pressed on. No, I mean, you talk about being real and honest, but you've made comments about staying out of political stuff, about not taking sides. Don't you think that's kind of a luxury, staying quiet when you have millions listening?" The mood shifted. The laughter stopped. Blake straightened in his chair, the humor fading from his face. "Joy, I'm not quiet. I just don't go picking fights I don't need to. My fans know who I am. I write songs about real people, love, heartbreak, life in small towns. That's what they care about." Joy raised an eyebrow. "So you think your fans don't care about what's happening in the world? About people being treated unfairly?" Blake sighed, his southern drawl sharpening ever so slightly. "I think they care plenty. But they don't need me preaching at them. They've got enough folks doing that already." The audience clapped lightly, some nodding in agreement. Joy, however, wasn't done. "That's convenient," she said with a smirk. "You get to stay out of controversy while still selling your version of authentic America. You ever think that's why people accuse you of being tone deaf?" The room fell quiet. Even Whoopi glanced sideways, sensing things were spiraling. Blake's jaw tightened. "Tone deaf," he repeated. "Joy, I've been singing for over 20 years. I've played in bars, county fairs, places where people just want to forget their problems for a few minutes. I've never claimed to be a politician, or a preacher. I'm just a guy with a guitar who loves what he does." Joy leaned back, unflinching. "That's fine, but when you reach a certain level of fame, there's a responsibility that comes with it. You can't just hide behind a guitar and a beer bottle." The words hit hard. Blake's expression hardened, the playful charm gone. "Hide behind a guitar," he said slowly. "Lady, that guitar's the reason I'm sitting in this chair. I don't hide behind anything. I work hard. I respect people. I stay in my lane." Joy crossed her arms. "Maybe your lane's too narrow." That was it. The audience gasped, and even Sarah Haynes looked uncomfortable. Blake let out a sharp laugh, the kind that wasn't funny at all. "Well, maybe you should try staying in yours sometime. You'd make a lot fewer people mad." The tension was palpable now. The co-hosts tried to intervene, tossing in awkward jokes to lighten the mood, but neither Joy nor Blake seemed interested in backing down. The cameras zoomed in on their faces, Joy's eyes flashing with defiance, Blake's jaw set tight as a clenched fist. The studio lights suddenly felt hotter. "I came here to talk about music," Blake said finally, his voice steady but cold. "But if this is just about tearing people down, then maybe I'm in the wrong place." Joy smiled tightly. "Well, Blake, sometimes talking about the world means more than strumming a tune." "Yeah," he shot back, "and sometimes talking about the world means actually listening to it." The audience murmured, some clapping, others gasping. Whoopi stepped in quickly. All right, let's take a break before we start a country feud right here at the table." The audience chuckled nervously, but Blake didn't laugh. He leaned back, shaking his head, muttering something under his breath. As the cameras cut to commercial, producers rushed toward the set, whispering frantically. Joy sipped her water calmly, avoiding his gaze. "Blake, on the other hand, stared straight ahead, his eyes distant. What had begun as a promotional interview had turned into a standoff that no one saw coming. And when the show returned from the break, it was clear to everyone, something inside Blake Shelton had snapped, and he wasn't about to let it go quietly. When the show returned from commercial, the atmosphere was anything but calm. The studio audience, still buzzing from the heated back and forth, leaned forward in their seats, waiting to see if Blake Shelton would smooth things over or light another spark. The co-hosts sat uneasily, with Whoopi Goldberg doing her best to steer the chaos back into safe territory. "All right, y'all," she said with her trademark calm, "we're here to talk about Blake's new album Backroads and Barstools. It's already topping the charts, so let's give the man some credit." The audience clapped half-heartedly, but Joy Behar didn't join in. She was sitting back in her chair, lips pursed, eyes locked on Blake. He noticed it immediately. "What?" he said, chuckling bitterly. "You look like you're waiting to pounce again." Joy leaned forward, her tone measured but sharp. "I just think it's interesting that you can write all these songs about real life but avoid talking about the real issues. Don't you think your fans deserve more than feel-good music?" Blake sighed, the patience draining from his face. "Joy, my fans get plenty from me. They get honesty. They get songs that remind them who they are. Not everyone wants to turn on the radio and hear more arguing. They want peace, not politics." Joy raised an eyebrow. "Peace is nice, but silence isn't peace, Blake, it's privilege." That word hit like a lightning bolt. The audience went dead quiet. Blake stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he let out a low laugh. "Privilege? You've got to be kidding me. I grew up on a dirt road in Oklahoma, working on my dad's truck before school. I didn't have a silver spoon, Joy. I had a wrench." The crowd erupted in applause, and even a few cheers. Joy, however, wasn't swayed. "And yet, you sit here acting like nothing's wrong in the world," she countered. "You think writing about heartbreak absolves you from caring about the bigger picture?" "Lady," Blake snapped, his southern drawl hardening, "you're twisting everything I say. I care plenty. I just don't think screaming on talk shows changes anything." That jab landed directly where it was aimed. Joy leaned forward, her voice rising. "Excuse me, you come on my show, and you think you can tell me what helps or doesn't help? I've been doing this for 30 years. "Yeah," Blake shot back, "and maybe that's the problem. You've been talking so long, you stopped listening." The audience gasped. Even Whoopi's eyes went wide. Sarah Haynes tried to step in, her voice wavering. Okay, maybe we can." But it was too late. Joy stood up slightly, pointing a finger across the table. "You don't come on here and disrespect me, Mr. Country Superstar. You're not on The Voice now. You can't just walk away from a hard question." Blake pushed his chair back a few inches, his jaw tight. "I didn't come here for this circus," he said, removing his mic. "You call it hard questions, I call it bad manners." The audience murmured, and producers off camera began waving frantically, urging him to sit back down. But Blake was done. He stood up fully, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I've done hundreds of interviews, and I've never had one go this sideways. You don't want a conversation, Joy, you want a fight." Joy smirked, not backing down. "And it looks like you just lost it." That was the final straw. Blake looked her dead in the eye. "No, ma'am, I'm walking out because I've got better things to do than argue with someone who confuses bullying for bravery." Gasps echoed across the audience. Whoopi put her hands up. "All right, that's enough. Let's just cool down here." But Blake was already stepping away from the table, ripping off his mic pack and tossing it gently onto the chair. "Good luck with your show," he said flatly. "I'll stick to singing." And with that, he walked off stage. The audience was frozen for a second before breaking into a mix of applause and stunned murmurs. Joy sat back down, exhaling sharply but visibly rattled. "Well," she said with a thin smile, "guess that's one way to end an interview." Whoopi shot her a look. "Joy, you went too far," she muttered under her breath, but Joy only shrugged. The producers quickly cut to another commercial, and the set fell into an uneasy silence. Within hours, social media exploded. Clips of the confrontation spread across X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, each with a different narrative. Some viewers praised Blake for standing his ground and refusing to be baited, while others claimed he was fragile and unprofessional. Hashtags like #BlakeSheltonWalksOff, #TheView meltdown, and #Joy vs Blake began trending before the show had even finished airing. By evening, entertainment outlets were running with headlines: Blake Shelton storms off, The View, after clash with Joy Behar, and country star faces off against Joy Behar in on-air showdown. Blake's representatives released a brief statement. Blake appreciates opportunities to connect with fans, but personal attacks have no place in interviews. He remains focused on his music and his upcoming tour. Joy, never one to back down, addressed it on the next day's show. "I just asked questions," she said, shrugging. "If someone can't handle tough conversations, maybe morning television isn't for them." Her comment earned scattered applause, but also a noticeable silence from some co-hosts who looked ready to move on. Meanwhile, Blake's fans flooded his social media with messages of support. One fan wrote, "Proud of you for standing up for yourself, Blake. You didn't walk off, you walked tall." Another commented, "Country boys don't take disrespect lightly. You did the right thing." By nightfall, Blake was back on his tour bus, strumming his guitar as news of the incident played on a nearby TV. He shook his head, smirking faintly. "Guess I gave them their drama," he muttered. Then he turned off the screen, looked out the window at the dark stretch of highway, and softly sang to himself. For him, the storm had passed. But for The View, and Joy Behar, the echoes of that fiery clash would linger long after the cameras stopped rolling.